As humans, we crave connection with others. We desire to be fully loved and fully known. And often one of the ways that expresses itself is through a craving for a spouse or a partner. Today, we are going to be talking directly to those people who find themselves asking, will I always be single? Stay tuned to listen to us discuss this today from a philosophical, psychological, and theological view. Hi, you're listening to the Seeking Truth podcast, a podcast where we aim to unravel the Word of God and His will for our lives. So, I want to first start talking about why so often our desire and need for human connection presents itself in the desire for a romantic partner. So, in the garden, in Genesis, Adam was created by God. And in Genesis 2:18, Adonai, God said, "It isn't good that the person should be alone, and I will make for him a companion suitable for helping him." So God didn't create another man to be his helper, and didn't even create, a dog, man's best friend, to be the kind of helper that God was looking for in this situation. Neither of these options were enough to fully satisfy Adam or God's will for Adam. And instead, he created an equal opposite. And that's what that word helper means. And if you would like to know what the original Hebrew word was, if you go to blueletterbible.org and you type in Ezer, E-Z-E-R, you'll be able to find this word. Or you can even look up the original Hebrew code for that word, which is letter H 5826. And that will take you to that word that is used in Genesis and what that word means. And that word means someone who is helping. And that word's actually often used in the Bible when it's talking about God helping us. So it's not like I'm your slave, I'm your servant helping you. It's someone who comes alongside and helps. And the word that's used alongside that Ezer word is the word konegdo, which means opposite to him or corresponding to him. So the image God had for this helper for Adam was his equal opposite, someone who could come alongside him and support him and help him the way that God helps us. So it makes sense that, even thousands of years later, it's human nature to continue to feel this emptiness that Adam felt and seek that equal opposite in our life, our Ezer that God knew that we would need. So now flash forward to wherever you are in life. Most of the people listening to this are likely in their, mid-20s to mid-30s. And this is a really key part of our lives because often by this stage, we've had all of these life goals we've wanted to achieve, like owning a house and getting married and maybe having kids or traveling the world. And it can be at this stage that we stop and we kind of reflect on the goals that we had or the vision we had of our life when we were younger and realize that we're not where we thought we would be by this time. So even if you're not in that age bracket that I just said, whether you're older or younger, you can still have those thoughts of, I'm not where I thought I would be. And some of the thoughts that we think in this period of our lives really center around our relationship status. I thought I'd still be with that person, or I thought I would be dating by now or married by now. I didn't think I'd be a single parent at this stage in my life. There's so much condemnation and shame and self, attacking thoughts that we have in relation to our relationship status in life when it isn't what we want it to be. And this can make us feel really unwanted or really unworthy. Like we're thinking, is there something wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone want to be with me? And that can be a really upsetting headspace to be in, because when you're in that headspace, you feel like you can't explain why, you aren't dating someone, so there must be something wrong with me. That's the only reason that I can think of. And we put blame on ourselves that we've done something wrong or that we're unlovable to explain why we're in that place in our lives. But I'm here today to encourage you that just because you aren't in the life stage that you thought you would be, whether that's dating or married or with kids, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. And it doesn't mean that you are going to be single forever. God's plans and God's timing are often very different to what we want or what we would expect. I know myself, I've wrestled with God over things in my dating life that have happened much later than I expected them to. But every time I've looked back in reflection and seen what God has seen in my life, I can completely understand why things have worked out that way. I've been able to see the lessons that I needed to learn in those seasons that I could not have learned if I was dating someone. And I've seen the growth that I've gone through by learning more about myself. And I've seen that the guys that I dated that it didn't work out, I can see that each one of them have taught me something about my values, and even some of them helped to heal old wounds because I learned so much about myself in that process that I was able to overcome some of those barriers. And from someone who was single from the age of 23 all the way up to 28, let me tell you that there was a lot of tantrums and a lot of wrestling with God over this. And now that I am dating someone in a long-term relationship, I look back on those, 5-6 years of singleness and see how much healthier I am as a partner now because of those years. I was really dysfunctional and I had a lot of attachment issues before that I just couldn't see until I had worked on the skills of patience in life and disappointment in, praying for things and not having them come to fruition, and trying to date people where it just didn't work out for whatever reason. Every single moment has been soaked in God's wisdom, and looking back, the quality of my relationship now is beyond anything that I could have ever imagined or pursued even before, because before I would have settled and looked for someone completely different because I didn't have a healthy attachment system, and I was looking for, someone to fill the hole or to repeat the patterns that I'd done before. And I also didn't know the kind of values and qualities that I actually needed in a partner, not just wanted, but actually needed, those non-negotiables that I didn't realize I had until I stumbled with these other men that had come into my life. So regardless of how long you've been single, I would encourage you to reflect on all the things that, you've learnt from any previous relationships you've had, but also all the things that you're learning about yourself in this season now, because you really can't get this season back in your life. And this is the season where you do really learn about yourself. What are your non-negotiables and what will you and won't you compromise on? And really get a chance to clarify your boundaries and your values and sort out any attachment issues that you have. The other thing that we need to consider is that we actually don't fully know God's will for our lives at any given moment. There is so much hidden of God's plans that is yet to be revealed to us. And if we're asking ourselves the question of, will I always be single? Unfortunately, we can't with 100% confidence say that we will end up with someone, because we don't truly know God's will for us in that. Paul, the apostle, was one of the examples where God's will for him was to remain single so that he could focus 100% on his ministry. Now, we have free choice. God has made us with free choice, so we could always, go against his will and start dating someone, even if we feel like it's not the right thing to do. But as we know in life, every time we go against God's will, it just ends up in pain and heartbreak. But on a positive note, a brighter note, we do know from the Bible that God really values relationships, and he did design Jesus to be the bridegroom of the church. So we know he really values marriage, and he views that as a really high calling. So he's not saying to us as a general population that it is a sin to be married and it's a sin to be in a relationship. In fact, he really highly values marriage and relationships. Otherwise he wouldn't be a relationship-focused God and not want relationship with us. So the thing that's really helped me cope with wrestling with this uncertainty in my life and get me through those 5 or 6 years was really just sinking into my relationship with God. In the time when I was thinking about what if I have to wait, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or even a lifetime before I had a partner, it just felt like an unachievable amount of time to wait. I was getting impatient after like 2 years into my journey of being a Christian, being like, okay, I'm ready for, a boyfriend now. I'm ready to settle down and be married. And, obviously then it was another, 3 years after that before I even found someone. So what really helped me get through those periods were, instead of thinking about how long I might have to wait, I just took each day as it came, and I focused on deepening my relationship with God in those moments, learning as much about myself as I can, doing as much for God as I can through ministry. And, eventually 6 years passed and I was in a relationship. But in that time, in those years where I was digging into God, like, the depth of my relationship with God deepened so much. And when you do have a partner in your life, you're then splitting your emotional energy and your attention between, your partner and God, which is exactly what Paul talks about. He's like, you have almost this battle between wanting to please God and wanting to please your spouse when you are in a relationship. So having that really big season, like that a really long continuous period of being single in my life, really helped me to dig into that relationship with God, which is exactly what I needed looking back, because I was a new Christian. And if I'd gone into a relationship straight away, I would have thought that, that person fixed all my life problems, and that person made me the person that I am today, when really it was God. And that only came about from me actually having that relationship with God, So if you're in this waiting period, rather than thinking about how many more years will I have to wait, or I've already waited this many years, I would encourage you to, take each day as it comes, view each day as a day that you can learn more about God and more about yourself, and, start to heal those attachment issues, all those old wounds from relationships. Start to learn more about your values and what you will and won't compromise on. I read so many relationship books and marriage books in this period, even though I wasn't even dating someone, because I needed to reset my worldly view of what a relationship looks like and what kind of qualities I was looking for in a person. Because, my dysfunctional attachment system was making me latch onto the same type of people over and over again. So I really needed to reset, what are the qualities I'm looking for? And then, even though I'd read so many books, I still was falling into the trap of dating these people, for short periods of times, or being interested in these people that, kept fitting that old pattern. Even though my head knew this isn't matching, my heart just kept wanting to give these people a go. And it took quite a few guys, even after being a Christian, that I felt let down in, and I felt, disappointed in, and that it just completely fell apart, and God didn't allow that to bloom into a relationship, to really help me heal and understand and see the quality of a relationship that God wanted for me. So, wrapping up, the single season can suck. Yes, can feel like it's taking a long time and taking forever. But instead of focusing on your singleness, focus on the benefits of this single season and being able to throw yourself into ministry, into serving in your giftings, not having to compromise with, your spouse on what both of your giftings are, but throwing yourself into your giftings, exploring that, building your relationship with God, healing some of those old wounds, and learning more about yourself in the process. And just trust God to work everything else out in the background, because at the end of the day, unless it's His will and unless He's ordained it, it's not going to work out, and it's not going to be a fruitful relationship anyway. So that's it. That's all that we have to say on that topic today. If you liked this, make sure you give this a thumbs up, like, subscribe, wherever you are. Share it with someone who needs it. And thanks so much for listening. I hope to see you in our next episode. Bye, guys.